Hello, welcome to Buy the House, Build the Home.
Hi.
We're back. We have another special guest today. I'm going to let Betty introduce her.
I get to introduce this one. I take full credit for this one. Well, tell us your name.
Sheila Epperson.
Sheila Epperson. And I've known Sheila since before I was born.
Yes.
Well, no, you can't really know someone
Well,
before
kind
you.
of.
Whatever, since I was 0 days old.
It's in the genes.
Sheila is my beautiful dear cousin. Real actual cousins, like
Yes.
by blood.
Yes.
Blood cousins. Fellow realtor.
Yes.
She kills it. She's phenomenal. An amazing mother.
Thank you.
Amazing friend.
Thank
she
you.
is so good at her job. And so Sheila, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
How long you've been in real estate, whatever's on your heart. Just
Okay. All right.
share
I'm an
away.
open book. I've been in real estate for 8 years. I am married to my high school sweetheart. We've been married 30 years.
I love that.
Together 34, married 30. So we've been together more than half of my life.
Wait, how old were you? I know you said high school, but are we talking like
15 and 16. I know.
that's
like a
like
fairy
that's
tale.
like
It's a beautiful thing.
no, but that's like freshman year.
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
That's like
I was
high
freshman.
school.
He was sophomore, and
Ooh, older
here
man.
here we still are, right?
Did he know first, or did you see him and you're like, hey, now?
I think it was me. I hate to admit that, but I think I was the one that was like, "That's the one."
I love
Yeah.
it.
They've done a study. I'm going to rabbit trail first.
Go ahead.
They have
Let's
done a
rabbit.
study, and it's like if the woman approaches the man 1st, I think it's like over 60% or 70% end up marrying
Really?
that man.
That's
the man's
very-
just like, yes, sure.
Wow.
Very, very
I think
interesting.
that's a very interesting
Yeah.
statistic. Don't quote me on it. It's probably Instagram, and somebody probably was crazy, but
I love it.
I saw
Yeah.
that.
So married
Yeah.
30 years,
Married 30
together
years.
34.
Together 34,
Yeah.
2 children. We have a son, Dylan. He's 30, and my daughter, Cammie, who is 24.
Sweet.
So that is kind of my backstory. Been in real estate for 8 years. Why did I get into real estate? Let's see. I stayed home with my kids most of my life. I got to homeschool them, be the mommy. Dylan went off to college. Cammie was in her last few years of high school. And I was like, what now?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? What do you do when that was your job for
Yeah.
Right.
20 years. My husband had been trying to encourage me to get into real estate. And I was like, I don't think so. Contracts and, that doesn't sound like fun. So I actually went back to school. And I went back to school, went to TCC for 2 years, and I was going to do occupational therapy assistant. And it was just going to take forever. And I was like, maybe real estate might be the better option. So I took the classes and passed the test, and here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you started were you with Century 21 from the get-go?
Yes.
Okay.
So I started with Century 21 Judge Fi and never moved brokerages for 8 years until 6 months ago.
Until recently.
Yeah, we kind of had an idea.
Yeah.
So here I am.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was-
So what would you say, 8 years, I don't remember what the statistic was yesterday. We heard a statistic yesterday. It was like 87% of
87%
realtors
fail.
fail
Or choose to
quit
hop out.
or we
Within
wouldn't
the
say fail.
first
Yeah.
couple of years,
Yeah,
right?
it's like within a couple of years. So once you hit the 8-year mark, you're
good to
in.
go. Oh,
Yeah.
there's no turning back.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I
Once
mean, and to be honest, I love it. I love it more than I thought I would.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, in your 8 years, you're a seasoned agent. What would you say is the thing you love the most about it?
I think the thing I love the most, and this may sound cliche, but it's the truth. It's my heart. I love the relationships that I get to have with people, meet new people, build strong relationships. Some of them turn into really good friends, and you stay in touch with them for forever. That's my favorite. And then just seeing people, how excited and how happy they are, especially first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
It's like, it just gets me right here. I was made for this because it just makes me so happy.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. First-time home buyers, there's There's nothing like it.
Nothing like it.
I mean, the dream of home ownership. It's what everyone wants.
Yeah.
You know, and not everyone gets to accomplish that in their life. So when they do, it's huge.
It's huge.
Well, and to be an
Huge.
advocate for them in the midst of that is awesome.
Helping them through the ups and downs and the in and outs. And it can be pretty emotional, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a journey.
It is, for sure.
I do think that you have to have a certain skill set as a realtor, and so much of it is, are you good with people?
Yeah.
Because you can have a passion for the financial side and the education. There's all of that that's really good, but you have to care about the people.
For sure.
And I see people in real estate that really don't have that, and they don't last very long. They don't get the purpose, you know. I feel like when you can see the purpose behind it and it gives you your why.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like, oh, I can make money doing this. Like,
Right.
100%.
you know, when you can really separate out, and we've talked about this before, but seeing a person as a dollar sign and the amount of agents out there that do that. And when you can be like, oh no, I genuinely care about Sally and Curtis. Wow. I don't know where those names came from, but
love it.
when you genuinely are like, no, I want to see you thrive. I want to see you set up for success. I want to see, you know, and like you said, they become your friends.
Yeah.
And if you have that piece of it, there's a lot to learn. But that part I don't think can be taught.
Yeah, I agree. And just to piggyback off a little bit of what you said, loving so much doing what you're doing and wanting to help that person out that you may even make some sacrifices yourself. Whether it be a little bit of your commission, even though you don't want to. I mean, I want so bad to see my clients get to the closing table. I've done some pretty crazy things to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, because that's more important to me than the money, for sure.
I think we've all done that. Go ahead.
You're willing to get in the trenches.
Yeah.
Which I think is fun because sometimes that is what real estate is.
For
Not
sure.
always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes smooth. Sometimes it's simple. But we don't know all those factors going in. And I know both of you do it. I know that I do it. But get in the trenches, even emotionally. Like you don't want to be a roller coaster yourself per se.
Right.
But you can at least identify with the emotions
for sure.
and go there with them and understand why they might be grieving or why they might be so excited or why they might feel irritated in this moment or what that might look like and really defend where they're at. So
I just did a deal and this one, I don't want to repeat it again, but I will say, like, at the end of the day, everybody did what they needed to do to make it happen.
Yes.
It almost blew up
wow.
due to some pretty hard like financing things. Like a big gift that was going to be given was no longer there. And he could only buy if we could reduce the price way down. And the other agent went over and above on her end and I went over and above on my end. And it was one of those things like, you know, it's hard, but you're also like, I will do it. I will do what I need to do to make this happen for you. Because the alternative was that the whole thing fell apart. And, you know, you also can't just like give away the farm all the time, right? And you have to have boundaries with that because sometimes people will just ask. And for whatever reason, I think because we're so people oriented, we'll be the ones to just give and give and give and make it happen. So you do have to have a balance with that. But it was one of those deals I'm going to look back on. And whenever you go over and above, it always comes back around to you. That's just how I choose to live, and I believe that happens, and it does. It truly does. It will come back around to you. But going over and above for your client, and even sometimes without them knowing, right? Like it's like I don't have to be like, did you guys know that? You know, it's like
I did this for you.
It's like, you know, I can sit and go, I can hold my head up high and I can sleep at night really well.
I love
because
it.
I know that I did everything I could for that sweet family. And also without the string attached of like them feeling like they owe you something or something like that.
And I love that the agent on the other side was willing to do what she had to do. That
doesn't always happen.
A lot
Yeah.
to her character. Because that doesn't always happen. You don't always get an agent. But at the end of the day, your people wanted to buy. Mm-hmm. Their people, or was it vice versa?
Yeah,
your people wanted to sell. They wanted to buy. And that's what real estate is all about. It's about meeting in the middle and having, common, we're not going to pull all this way and we're not going to pull all this way. Let's meet in the middle and make two people's dreams come true. Yeah.
And hopefully you have a lender that's willing to do things as well as a title company that's willing to do things as well. I've had title companies that will waive a mobile notary fee, which that's a really small fee.
But still.
But it makes it so much easier for the buyers. I had
sure.
some that were buying and selling at the same time, and that can add up. And the title company was like, we'll take that, and I'm like, let's all work together.
It. Yes,
we
teamwork.
It really is important.
It is.
Team. It's not just the realtors. It's also the buyers. It's the sellers. It's title. It's lenders. And sometimes it's even family and friends that are around them in that moment. Yeah. Surrounding them and advising.
It's like putting a puzzle together and everything has to fit just right. Nothing can be missing. It all has to work together. To get to the finish line.
I would love to hear, if you can think of any quickly on your toes, some of maybe your favorite transactions or some of your most difficult transactions and what made them your favorite and or what made them so difficult.
Okay. Yeah, this won't be hard. I'm going to start with my favorite. So my favorite was, really my first transaction was probably my favorite and my worst.
Okay.
If you can wrap your brain around that, and I'll tell you why. First of all, your first transaction, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You finished school, you got your license, you learned the laws, but you really didn't learn how to do real estate.
Right.
I felt so lost. But I guess after I got my license, I got my first listing about 4 months in.
Okay.
So that was a blessing because I was like, oh my gosh, where's this work, going to come from?
Yeah.
So I had gotten a referral from someone. I started my sphere of influence. I'm not sure if y'all do that or not, but got a referral. And it was a sweet little older lady, husband and wife, and they wanted to sell their home, and it wasn't in the best shape.
Okay.
They had animals, and they had taken the carpet out, and it was just concrete flooring. And really, that was probably the biggest thing. Other than that, was a cute house, solid bones. But in her mind, because she didn't know, she didn't think that she could sell it because they didn't have carpet and it wasn't like all fixed up. And I was like, no, we can sell it. We just need to price it right. Yeah. Let's do some marketing. Let's put it out there and let's see if we can find you a buyer. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, for sure.
Yeah.
All this while I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me find out for you.
I'm doing it. And that was me. I'm like calling my manager, calling my mentor. And I'm like, hey, I don't know. Like I knew so little. Well, I don't want to jump ahead. We put it on the market. We got multiple offers. We ended up, I think, going with an all cash offer, which was over list price. But I was so lost in not knowing what I was doing that when we got the contract, I didn't even know what executing a contract was. Like I didn't know in the little box you had to put the date. So we had filled the whole, everything was good. It was all filled out. And my manager was like, it's not executed. And I'm like, well, what's that?
What do you mean?
They didn't teach you that in school.
Yeah, they don't.
Right?
Right.
So anyways, we got it executed. It was very tricky because I felt so lost doing it. I learned so much.
That's how you learn.
A ton. Yeah. But when it was said and done, and after we closed, the seller asked me if she could pay me 6%. And I was like, well, you are paying 6%. She goes, no. I didn't know the buyer's agent got 3 and you only get 3. I want to pay you 6. So I okayed it with my broker and got 9%. So that would be my best story. And it's not happened since, but she was so elated and just amazed that someone wanted the house and that I could sell the house, that she was like, here, take a little more. And I was like,
so sweet.
That's amazing. And in my office for like a year, they called me 9%. They were like, there's 9%. Yeah.
And for your first deal, that's amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. That was pretty cool. So
I think a lot of times you just do need to be that like voice for someone to be like, hey, we can figure this out.
Yeah.
Let me take your hand and guide you through it. And not everybody is going to, an older couple, not everybody's going to be in a position where they're going to want to or have the means or even the mental space to call a contractor and get the floors put in and do all of those. And so it's like not always, we have to do XYZ to sell our house, right? You price it right, it'll sell. It depends on the neighborhood and the market, but it's just to be able to sit with someone and go, hey, let's do this. This is what you can do. This is what you can work with, which is not probably a lot in this case. And we're not going to be doing a bunch of renovations, but let's see what we can do for you. And then people are elated is a good word.
They were going to walk away from it. Like that's where she thought that's the situation that she was in. And I was like, are you behind? And she was like, no. And I was like, no, we're not going to walk away. We can sell it. I mean, they were just going to leave it because they didn't know what to do with it.
Oh my goodness.
They didn't have the money to fix it, and they didn't know they could sell it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why she was just like, wow, you just put this much money in my pocket and this is unbelievable. I didn't think I was going to get anything, and here I'm getting this. So it's pretty cool.
That's great. That's
we just sat down and discussed like the power of preparation and planning and asking and seeking wisdom. And I think that's just such a beautiful example of, had they not gone to a realtor or a professional, they would have given up so much.
People just don't know. And that's why it's important to have a realtor.
Yeah.
Because, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, with a good realtor, whether it's their first transaction or their 61st transaction, they're going to figure out what they need to do to get you where you need to be.
Yeah.
Right. So I tell new agents, I'm like, it's really hard because you don't know how to do it yet.
Right.
You've taken the tests, you've passed the classes, you've got a lot of head knowledge, but you don't have, here's the actual cross your T, dot your I, this is what you got to do.
In the skills.
And that's why you mentioned the word mentor. And I talk about this often. If you want to be good and just getting thrown into a large brokerage, you're not going to have anybody that can really help you.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the right people around you.
Sure.
And then also the attitude of, let's figure this out
we'll
for
do
you
it together.
Right? Absolutely. And I think that makes a huge difference. And it doesn't matter how seasoned you are. And a lot of times people think, I don't know what I'm doing. And you kind of have this imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I still sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. It's
because it's all, sometimes it's new.
Yeah. But every situation is new. Every single one.
Yes.
You always have different scenarios, different people, different
100%.
personalities. Yeah. And so just having that mentality, though, that I'm here to help you. Yeah. And if I don't know, I'm going to find somebody that does, and we'll get you to the finish line.
I think that's probably one of the best qualities to have in a realtor, is somebody that's able to say, I don't know, but we will figure it out, and we will get this done in whatever manner we need to.
We were in a legal class yesterday, and they were kind of giving one of these examples, and it was a true story of this, someone overheard this realtor on the phone with her clients, and there were so many things wrong. The whole exercise was what is this realtor doing wrong? But she was basically just like, I told you this is what you need to sell your house for. I don't remember all of the...
She was basically, in the scenario, was basically saying, get this deal signed because I've done too much work already. Is that the one that you're talking about?
And they were asking her questions, and she was just like, just sign it. Not willing to sit with them, not willing to. And I mean, she did so many other things in that I can't even remember that were wrong.
And it was a real scenario.
Yeah, it was a real scenario. Story. And I'm like, this is what some of these people do. Instead of taking the time. I mean, I'll have clients be like, is this normal, you know, that we're on the phone like this? And I'm like, yes. And sometimes people aren't on the phone with me like this, but yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah. This is your journey, and I'm here with you. Yeah. So if you need me to explain it 4 more times, I'll explain it 4 more times because I'm here for you, and I want you to make sure you feel comfortable, you know what you're doing, and that you have somebody who's with you in it.
Yes,
I also couldn't imagine being in this industry and being able to sleep well at night if I wasn't giving 150%
for sure
every day. Because I want to learn. I want to be deeply competent in everything that I do. And I just don't understand individuals, not just this industry. Yeah. Individuals in general. When you don't give your full to what you're doing, I'm like,
the amount of mornings that I wake up and I'm like, option ends on Tuesday. Today's Friday. Yeah. We got to get right. And then when you've got lots going at the same time, it's like this one. And I can't fathom just kind of not having that internal pressure, right? to make sure that we're doing everything. And there's a lot of moving parts. Like
so many.
If there's a transferable warranty from the foundation company and you don't get it signed at closing, or your client doesn't get that done within 30 days, depending on the company, they lose the warranty.
Yeah.
Those are things that they're not thinking about because they're thinking about what kind of couch they're going to get to sit in front of that, in that living room. And they're thinking about all the finances that they're about to just let go of. And they're thinking about, I was mentioning this the other day. I have sellers who will be like, don't put the sign in the yard yet because we haven't told our neighbors.
Oh gosh.
And it's like, we haven't told our neighbors yet, and they're going to be so upset when we're moving. They're dealing with
a lot of emotions.
So many things.
Yeah.
And so those types of things we need to be on top of.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
And as your agent, if you're not, I'm not here to like condone unhealthy stress, but if you're not waking up every day as a realtor thinking about your client, that house, that appraisal, the lending, is the financing days up, there's a lot of moving parts.
A lot.
And if you're not doing that, I think you're doing them a disservice.
For sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. That was your best story.
Yeah.
Best
One of the best.
You said best.
Yeah. But that wasn't a worst in the sense of like, do you have any horror stories? Let's go there.
Let's go horror stories.
Well, maybe. Well, there's a couple. Some are small and some are big. I'll give you a small one.
Okay.
So I was showing a client houses one time, and we scheduled our showing, got it approved. I always like to get to the house early when I'm meeting a buyer, just to open it up, turn the lights on, if I can. That's always my goal. So I get to this house. I knock on the door. I always knock on the door, and I'm like, hey,
Realtor.
Sheila Epperson, Dewbrew Realty. We're here to show the house. I open the door. It's pitch black in there, and there is a man laying on the couch. And I'm like, and I hurry up and shut the door. And I run to my car, and I leave, and I call my client, and I'm like, we're not seeing this one today. I had no idea this house is occupied. I don't know who this man is. I nearly tinkled on myself. We are not going to see this house. Let's go on to the next one. That was scary. It just scared me.
Did you ever find any information?
I called the listing agent immediately, and I was like, girl, there is someone in this house. And she's like, yeah, it's a rental. And I was like, yeah, no, I didn't know that. And you approved the showing. Yeah. Why is he sleeping on the couch? And I scared him too. Yeah. I mean, he could have had a weapon. He could have got me. I'm intruding in his house is my point.
Did I tell you about the one I went into with the tenant?
No, maybe not.
I know I shared this one time before. I'll keep it brief. Long story short. It was a fourplex, and they were tenant occupied, but we had to give 24-hour notice. And anyway, I had these buyers. They didn't have an agent, so I was showing them, but I represented the seller.
Gotcha.
And so I go, realtor, knock on the door. We've given plenty of notice. They're supposed to have dogs out of the house.
Oh, boy.
And this huge dog bounds down the stairs. That was the first thing. Then there is dog feces all over in the kitchen.
The house.
In the house.
Inside.
In the house.
Oh, goodness.
And so it's already just like, it's just gross. There's hair.
Ugh.
And I'm getting on the lights, and I go into the bathroom.
Oh, my gosh.
Mind you, I used to do property management. I've walked into lots of things.
Yeah.
Okay. And I go and open the bathroom door, flip on the light. The light was off. Flip on the light, and all of a sudden there's a man behind the shower curtain, fully naked.
Oh,
rips the shower curtain completely back and starts screaming profanities at me.
That's the worst.
And Sheila, I have the four keys in my hand.
Oh my gosh.
And it scares me. So I drop all the four keys on the ground. So then I'm on my hands and my knees, and there's hair everywhere. And there's this naked man right in front of me. And I'm trying to get the key, and I'm like, ah.
Oh my god.
And then I'm like, I'm so sorry. And he's screaming the F word, and then I'm like, and then I close the door, and I'm like, I am so sorry to these buyers.
Gosh.
And then we're walking downstairs. I'm like, I'm so sorry. We notified them, and then I'm like shaking. I'm trying to lock it back up. Yeah. And the guy was like, are you okay?
Not really.
Not
really.
A naked man. And the light was off. There was no water going.
What was he doing?
He was hiding, waiting to yell at me. And the landlord confirmed that this is kind of what this guy had done.
Troublesome.
He ended up getting evicted before we were able to sell the property because he was problematic. But naked man behind a shower curtain.
You got me beat. That's a good one.
I hope I have like most people beat. I really hope it hasn't
Yes,
been much
one
worse
would
than
think that would be
because that's really
one of the
bad.
top.
That's a
It
doozy.
was really, really bad.
That
For
is
sure.
a doozy.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, and I'm always like, I spin that in the positive way where I'm like, but you never know what you're going to walk into. Because
Well,
sometimes
true.
you're like, oh my gosh, the pictures didn't do this justice.
Yeah.
Look at this. Or even like, it's fascinating to see how people live.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, look at the way this woman organized
Yeah.
her pantry.
Yes.
Yeah, you
You
get
know,
some
that
great
gets me.
ideas.
You're just
walking
like, oh
through
my gosh.
houses.
But then you also will walk
Yeah.
in on people, and it's very eerie. That's why I tell sellers, I'm like, get out of the house. Don't be there for the showings because it's
Yes.
awkward. Even if you think you're really
Agreed.
nice.
Agreed.
And you're not like asleep in the pitch dark on the couch.
Yeah.
Even if you think it's going to be, it's just weird. So it's like, get out of the house, limit the interaction. You
For
want it
sure.
to be completely empty when you go in.
I just did a final walkthrough with clients, and the agent she did prep me that they were going to be moving a car out of the garage. It was like a shell of a car. I think
Okay.
the husband had like worked on cars, things
Yeah.
like that. While we were there, I'm like, no problem. She said it was a moving company that was handling that. I'm like, I get that, no worries. And so that's what I understood of it. So we show up, and there's about 10 to 15 people on property, hanging out, having dinner, packing up, moving things around.
Party.
There was 2 poodles in the house. There was feces on the floor that we
Oh.
found. And my buyers were just like, the sweet wife, oh my God, I adore her. She goes, I'm a little uncomfortable. And I was like,
Yeah.
me too. Let's just, like, we're going to walk through. Because there was a few repairs and things that they had promised as well. So I'm like, let's just walk through, get that done. I'll talk to the agent. Let's see if we can do another one.
Yeah.
Make it clear it needs to be just us. And we did. We went back, but I told the agent, she's like, I'm so sorry. That's not what I, communicated. But I'm like, hi.
Yeah.
And I think when I was looking for a house with you, if you remember that, I mean, it was several years ago now, but we walked into one house and everybody was there. And it just makes for a much
very
more
awkward.
awkward
Yeah.
situation because you also don't want to maybe put someone's space down when you're in the midst of it, but
right.
it might not be your taste.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are really messy or really dirty, or you need to be able to have those free like conversations and communication.
Yeah, and you don't feel like you can talk about things when there's people right there, you know. And I mean, I tell people all the time, if you are in a scenario where they have to be home, you need to be calling that agent.
Yeah.
Like if that agent had said, hey, we let the tenant know he tends to be an oversleeper. He might be on the couch. That would have been a completely different scenario. You still would have been uncomfortable. You probably still would have left, but it wouldn't have been this
Shocking.
like, right. And sometimes you can't control things as an agent. I have a sell right now, or I'm a listing, and there's tenants in there, and their son was home, and he was asleep, and nobody knew.
Gosh.
And I called her, and I mean, it can happen, but it's really better if you're just really all communicating.
Agreed.
And it is hard to get out of your house at the drop of
It
a hat
is.
for a
It's
showing.
inconvenient.
Yeah.
I did have this one other, luckily it was just an agent preview, so it was just me walking through the house, but I had requested for a certain time, showing, whatnot, and I got a request back to change the time, like it was 30 minutes later or something like that. And I was like, no problem. So I switched that, and I actually had my little one with me because it was over the summer, and I'm like, well, it's just me. I'm just walking through her house. No problem. And she's 6, and so she was with me. And I go to open the door, I kind of knock on it. Like we kind of all do. We're kind of trained to. And I was like, hello. And this woman, I never saw her, but she goes, who are you?
Oh, gosh.
And I'm like, hi, I'm doing an agent preview of your home. And she goes, I don't have a showing right now. And I was like, oh, it was confirmed and then actually requested for this time. And she goes, I don't have one. And I was like, okay, have a great day. And I just like shut the door. And my little one was like, what's happening? And I'm like, I don't know. Go to the car. Go to the car. Get to the car.
Let's just go.
But yeah, so it can get, we have some hazardous moments
We do.
in our line of work.
We definitely
sure.
do. Yeah.
It's better if you just over communicate.
Absolutely.
I mean,
That
even
is
if
the
it feels
best.
like overkill.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I'm working 2 right now. I represent the seller, and the sellers are also buying, and we went under contract for their home to sell. And they also, on the buy side, they didn't want to take the offer unless they had an offer on their home because it's contingent.
Of course.
Right.
Right.
So I'm working the same client, 2 deals, and I've got 2 different agents. And one of them is phenomenal. He we got the inspection scheduled quickly. He immediately contacted me about repairs. We have time to get in an HVAC guy. He is texting me for follow-up.
Perfect.
And he's awesome.
On it. Yeah.
And on the other side, I've got this. I'm like, do you want to sell this house? Do you want to sell this house? Because you are not acting like you do.
Do you feel like a babysitter?
Yeah, non-responsive, takes forever to get back to me, won't. I mean, simple things.
Yeah.
Like at one point, I'm like, hey, this roof needs to be replaced. And the insurance is not going to cover it. And my buyers cannot buy the house unless we have an insurable roof.
Yes.
Therefore, please do not waste our time. If we cannot get the roof replaced as part of this transaction, we're going to need to terminate. And I don't want to proceed with a plumber's report and all of these other things that we have and money. And he didn't respond. And I'm like, I have an HVAC guy coming today at 2:00. I'm paying another realtor to go open up the door for me. I don't want to spend that money. Can you let me know? I mean, pulling teeth and not even like responding with, hey, I'm waiting to find out. We're on the phone with insurance.
I'll get right back with you.
Like
Give
that's
me a
different.
second.
I'm not expecting you to know everything right the second I ask you. But just communicating. I mean, it goes such a long way. And even now my clients, it's starting to feel a little uneasy because I'm like, yeah, I reached out. Yeah, I texted. Yeah, I haven't heard back.
I hate that.
And they're like, well, what are they going to be like? You know, it just starts to feel like, I don't know if I want to sell this house or buy this house.
Can 100% ruin the deal.
That's disappointing.
And they can 100% win the deal, in my opinion, as well.
I've done transactions like that before, too, where I felt like I was babysitting the agent. I was finding mistakes. I was having to have her correct documents, tell her she needed to do this, please do that, let's get this done, you know, what's going on here. I like the whole entire time.
And
I felt like I was working both sides and I wasn't.
There's a level.
I like my 9% again.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
There's a level of, you know, we are all in the same industry and we're, you know, we are all here for the same goal. But you also do always have to look at, like, who do you represent? You don't represent. My job is not to communicate. My job isn't to train another agent.
I know.
My job is to represent my client. And it can be really difficult because you also want to get it done. But I mean, I've had several where we've had one we've talked about where it's like, your job is not, especially if it's not in your client's best interest, right? If you're helping them do something that's in your client's best interest, that's one thing. But it is really tricky whenever they don't communicate. And I've also had on the other side agents that are newer that are like, hey, listen, I don't really know. And at that point you're like, okay. Like, and I've had people, I had early deals on where some agents were like just really kind to you and didn't demean you and aren't like, oh, your license number looks new. So, you know, so I always try to, and it's hard not to because sometimes you're just like, this agent does not know what they're doing.
It's the first thing I look at when something kind of goes sour. I'm like, let me look at this license. Oh, okay. Now I get it.
It's true.
I'll help you. But if you've been in the industry for 8 years.
And then sometimes you've got people who've been in it for 20.
And then they think they know
and
it
they
all.
have another, and then you're like, okay. And then I see their license number. I'm like, you've been doing this for a really long time. But also you didn't learn how to adjust with the times too.
True.
So
Very true.
You gotta stay on top of it.
Yes.
It's not for the faint of heart, this realtor job.
Very true. It takes a special kind of gal or guy.
It does. It really does.
It's a pretty female dominated.
Do you think? I mean, for the most part, my last 2 deals, one I just closed, the agent on the other side was a gentleman, and one I'm getting ready to close, he's a gentleman. But I do see more women.
Statistically, I think. I mean, in our area specifically, I don't know.
Well, statistically, commercial is primarily
very
male
true.
driven.
Very true. That's a good point.
That's fine. You take
it. It's a good old men's club. And you walk in and they're like, hi,
who is she?
I don't even want to talk about it.
See, in moments like that, I'd just play it.
Oh, no, I do. I'm like,
hi. Just get ready.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Well, what are you seeing in the market right now for you?
Wow.
Like, what
for
are you
personally?
Personally?
Yeah.
So for me personally, I am super busy.
Yeah.
I think the market is great. You know, it's always up and down. It's always changing. You just have to roll with it, go with it, be willing to make the changes. But for me, it's fantastic. I'm working with sellers. I'm working with buyers. Buyers aren't afraid of the rates. The rates have come down a little bit, but I know y'all know the famous slogan, logo, whatever. You marry the house, not the rate.
Yeah, date
you can
the rate, marry the house.
Yeah, I like it that way too. Can always refinance.
Yeah.
So I'm very busy. People are still wanting to sell. Depending on where the house is, I'm seeing them sit maybe a little longer, but not in all cases.
Yeah.
I closed one 2 weeks ago, and we had an executed offer in 14 days.
Yeah.
So the one that they're buying, that one was on the market like 78 days, but one was in Mansfield and one was in Midlothian.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the area.
I think location is huge right
But
now.
real estate is good.
And price point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the market is different than what it was.
I do
too. I mean,
too.
as far as we've resettled back into it more of a groove.
I feel like it's more even on both sides. Maybe buyer, seller, not so much one or the other.
Yeah. And things, I mean, it used to be 2 weeks you thought something was wrong with the house if it didn't sell in 2 weeks. And now it's like, hey, I'll even tell buyers, I'm like, this has been 42 days. That's really not, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the house at all. And I read something yesterday, I think average was like 78 or something like that. To 90 even, like that's not uncommon. And I'm seeing buyers get some really good deals.
Same.
Because they're really able to negotiate the price. And I think because the prices drove up so much,
it's starting to balance
back out.
I'm seeing that too. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. I am seeing all of my buyers that I'm working with, and even if I have the seller's having to negotiate and come down or give a concession or be willing to do something. And I haven't worked with a buyer yet where the seller's like, nope, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Buyers are getting a little bit off the asking price or a concession.
I'm seeing a lot of rate buy downs right now.
Yes.
A lot of sellers are contributing towards rate buy down. We're even doing things where let's get the purchase price up $5,000, but we're going to ask for a $10,000 rate buy down. And for the seller, a buy down.
Yeah.
For the seller, it's their bottom line is their bottom line.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, and as long as you're not really concerned with an appraisal issue, then you're good. But I'm seeing a lot of that because buyers are able to take that cost concession to buy the interest rate down. You can do a permanent rate buy down.
Yeah.
Get the interest rate in a really good place where they got the mortgage in a place that's something they can handle. And then, I'm seeing that happen all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Inventory is up too.
I agree with that as well.
Even in this area specifically, let's put that DFW.
I think all over. I
think we
agree.
went from like 14,000 active to like 17,000 active.
Yes.
So that's great for buyers
it
as
gives
well.
buyers
that
more.
probably is evening out the playing field.
I agree.
And you do have school just started. So people are, I mean, there's so many waves in real estate. And then I think COVID really changed a lot of that because it was like it used to be, but now people are working from home more and there's a lot more flexibility. But I'm seeing less, I would say more inventory sitting, less active buyers, but then the ones that are coming in, they're strong. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any potential listings where people bought just maybe during COVID or right after that all of a sudden right now are having to sell or need to sell? Because I'm coming up against that. And it's not good when you do the numbers and you get to the net sheet and they want to know. And I'm like, can you just hang on a little longer so this benefits you?
Yeah, I tried to tell people, I was like, don't call me in 2 years to sell your house. But also, no one really knew what was going to happen, right? Like, even if you'd been in I've been in real estate forever.
Yeah.
And even if I've already been through the waves of, election years and whatever, nobody's been through a global pandemic like that before. And specifically in the state of Texas, other markets were significantly different than ours. So many people were moving here.
So many.
We had a huge influx. And yes, I've got several where, I had to sit down and go, you paid this for it and we're having to sell it. And
for
with
less.
your selling expenses, you're not walking away with. If anything, you might be having to write a check at closing.
That's a hard conversation to have.
It's a hard thing.
It
and
is
sometimes,
awful.
I've got some clients that have handled that in a really healthy way where they're like, not every single house that and especially if you're going to turn around and move in 2 years, you're not going to have the
That's
equity
not normal
in the
anyway.
No
matter what.
And you shouldn't be trying to sell your house in 2 years and try to walk away with any kind of a profit.
Yeah.
Even if the market is always, I tell people it has its dips and
That's right.
its valleys and mountains, but it's usually trending up. But trying to turn around and sell right after that when you overpaid is just really difficult, and it is happening.
It is happening.
And I think people think, oh, the values are going up. The values are going up. Well, when you bought, the values had just gone up significantly. There's a big difference. If someone bought a house in 2019 and then sold it in 2021, they made bank on their house.
Right.
Yeah. If you bought a house in 22 and you're trying to sell in 24,
not okay right now. Stay a little longer if you can.
Yeah, I had buyers that we put a bid on the house, got the house for about $25K under their listing price, which was already about $20K less than what they had paid for it 2 years ago.
Wow.
So they're going to be writing a check. And then in the midst of the transaction, appraisal came in even lower.
Oh, no.
They were going to have to bring like 50, 60K to the table, and they couldn't.
Wow.
And so they just took it off the market and tried to go a different direction. So we had to step out of that.
Yeah.
But I've seen that quite
it's
a bit.
a sad thing.
I have some too that they bought. It was a new build. They bought it in October, and then for unforeseen reasons have to move out of state, and the builder had dropped off like $55,000 for them, and then we put it at what they bought it for, which they already would have been losing, and then we still had to lower significantly. And it's very difficult. So you don't always have the equity in your house that you might think you do. And really, it should be a long-term.
Yes.
That's a conversation I'm always trying to ask. How long are you planning on living in this house?
Yes.
I even have another thing that, this is very realtor talk here, but appraisal waivers. You can do an appraisal waiver if, let's say, you put down a ton of money down, and the lender's going to say, we don't actually require you to have an appraisal.
Right.
And if you've got a lot of money down and the lender's not requiring appraisal, that's great. You don't have to pay $750.
Yeah.
But then you don't have an appraisal to see, and we can look at the comps. And especially if it's something where I'm like, I think you're probably overpaying a little bit, that appraisal would really protect you.
Yeah.
So you really need to have that appraisal waiver in there that's saying, I will get an appraisal and I will only pay what it's appraised.
That's what saved my buyers 100%.
Right. But I also have sellers that are like, well, I want to live here 8 to 10 years. My girls are going to go through high school and I don't care. And I want to buy the house at this price. And if I can waive the appraisal, let's do it. Yeah. So it's situational.
Absolutely.
And if I know, and then that's when I say, don't look at me to sell your house in 2 years. And they're okay with that, then that's okay, and that's great. But you do need to have that conversation with them, and sometimes things just happen that you can't unforeseen circumstances
out of your control.
Yeah.
Well, Sheila, it has just been so great having you on this podcast.
Thank y'all for having me. This was
we got
fun.
to kind of lean into
I was so excited about this.
Oh,
I want to do it
cute.
again.
We're going to have you back. Absolutely.
This is awesome. I love to talk, so I could do this all day.
Another quality about most realtors.
Right?
We don't have a problem with talking.
Yep. So fun.
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
So and I'm so excited for this new journey that you're on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you again for coming out and sharing a little bit.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone. We'll be back soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.